Let me cut you and get you to the specific question that is for you.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Education is allocated the fourth largest share of our recurrent budget for this financial year. How can Botswana expand health quality services, including the national health insurance, in a fiscal space that is shrinking and, as Red Muno has said, also having a rising debt?
Yeah, and I think it also comes back to how do we just refocusing on what can you do with the little that you have. And I want to suggest that there's a lot that can be done with the little that we have. Just looking at what other countries are able to do with the little that they have. I think our problem for a long time has been and is quality. How do you, with the little that you have, improve on the quality? How do you use the little? I mean, we do this in our own homes. When we know that the money cannot take us a long way, we prioritize. And we want to, what some people will call the lowest hanging fruit, that is going to give you the best benefits, the best impact without much spending. And I think that talks to quality. And I'm a family physician, I'm a primary care provider. And our focus is really, we think it's important that the patient feels that they are heard, that you see them. It's not about giving them the best, top of the range medication. It's about how you take care of them. Do you see them as a person? And I think this is what improves the quality. And I think if you want to do a lot with a little, you have to focus on that. That means our healthcare providers have to have that mindset as well. And also have the mindset of closing the taps where there's a much waste that can be controlled. And that talks to the training, and just instilling that element of being able to look at what you have and use it prudently, and that I think we can do. That does not need the largest share of the budget.
Thank you. Professor Bulawa, your reflection on the budget, just in 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I think I'm quite happy that the Ministry of Education, as usual, has been given one of the largest allocation in terms of the budget. And I want to believe that with this amount of money, I'm very much aware, as the PS has already stated, that we have challenges when it comes to funding. We all know about that, but I want to believe that this money will be used to, among other things, address issues of performance. Academic performance in Botswana has proved to be, I don't want to use this word, but I will use it, a complete disaster, more especially in JC and worse at senior level. The results have been a complete fiasco. And I want to believe that we'll use this money, what has been allocated to us, to address this problem. And later I will explain why we are in this predicament. Or maybe let me just mention it to you. It all started with the automatic promotion from primary to JC. Almost all of you here, you are here because during your time, after primary education or PSLE examination, you qualified to go to secondary because you either had attained an A or an upper B. But now it's everybody. And I want to believe that we will use this allocation to address this problem, because it's a problem. We talk about unemployment is because of this problem. We started when we made it a point that everyone was promoted to go to secondary. And I'm talking about people who had literally failed. So you moved children from primary who had not mastered primary skills and competencies. You send them to secondary. So they are in a secondary, at secondary level, and whereas they have not mastered primary skills and competencies. So we will elaborate on that. That is where the problem is.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Just on that, Prof. Bulawa, I think you've already almost got there.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Education historically has been getting the lion's share of the budget, and yet the outcomes are almost a disaster. The rates of return are not, commensurate with, the money that is put in there. So my question to you is, given this, how can we improve the efficiency and effectiveness of education's spending going forward?
Yeah, that's...
How do we get value for our money?
Exactly. You see where the problem is. I alluded to the issue of automatic promotion of our children. The problem is that when you decide on that kind of thing, the first thing you should have already have trained your teachers to be able to deal with learners of different learning abilities. We call it differentiation. That was not done. And I want to believe that even with the limited funds that we have, we'll ensure that teachers are retrained. Our teachers, I'm sure some of them are here, they were never trained for mixed ability teaching. They were trained to be teachers. Now you give them this large class, the majority of whom have not really done well, you create a problem. So I want to believe that UB has a lot of expertise that would help the Ministry of Education. But sometimes people always say, why don't you get closer? No, it's always better if the ministry says, please, let's work together. Because it's the ministry, they have the children, it's their children. But all I'm saying is that we must use that money to ensure that teachers are trained. Not only that, one of the things here, when you create a problem like that, remember it's called a differentiation. You must differentiate, you must make sure the curriculum takes care of the different learning styles, learning abilities of the children. It has not been done. We are still using that one-fit-all curriculum, so that a student who gets an A star and one, these days they've got U's and stuff, they write the same exam. So what do you expect when a situation is like that? We need to change that. That is a problem. That we should use the funding that we have been given now to address. One of the things that we may have to do, and that I think I've talked to Richard about it. Sorry, please. One of the things that we need to do is that we may have now to do the multiple pathways, right? So that all the children, when they enter secondary school, they have a choice of what they deem as something that will contribute positively to their careers. But we have already decided on what they should come, including the subject that they don't think will help them pursue, their life. So let's use this money to change the education system, because we are behind everyone else. We should have long changed our curriculum. I thank you.
Thank you. Professor Apo, just 2 minutes for your reflection, then we'll come to your question.
Thank you very much, moderator Dumelang Bagaetsho. I was actually very pleased hearing and appreciating the budget speech, because for me, I was deeply appreciative of the decision to prioritize digital transformation and export-led diversified economy, because coming from the creative industries, the digital landscape is a playing field for the creative sector. And so we are very excited about the fact that when there is an investment in the digital economy, it means that we can expect better infrastructure that the sector so much needs, and that there can also be improved regulatory frameworks, because this is an area that needs our attention as a country. But I did note, and this is nothing new. Those of us in the creative sector will resonate. This will resonate with them. I did note those persistent gaps, and in fact, because I want to say that I think the creatives are looking for a day, are waiting with excitement for a day when the ministries that serve them, like the Ministry of Sports and Arts, and then the Ministry of Youth, can be considered priority ministries. Every year, those of us operating in that space are hoping that one of those ministries at least could jump up and be a priority ministry. The PS in the Ministry of Education has pointed out the statistics, and I don't have to repeat that, of youth unemployment. This country is wrestling with the crisis of youth unemployment, and here is a sector that employs, that can address that fully. And I want to say very confidently and boldly that the creative industry sector, creates jobs better than any other economic industry. I want to boldly say that. And that's because sometimes we talk about, we look at it as if it's just one industry. But in fact, there are several industries within this sector. There is music and dance, there is fashion, there is theater, there is film. So there is vast opportunity here for us to improve those statistics of unemployment as long as we make intentional investments in this sector. And that's something that we need.
Thank you very much. Your specific question, what policy and financing models can turn this sector into a sustainable export sector? Especially that you also have said this is a sector that is a potential to be able to employ our youth who have hopes.
Absolutely. You see, Botswana is not doing so badly in terms of the legal legislation that supports the sector, because we have the NACB Act, the National Arts Council of Botswana Act, that was recently instituted. And then we also have the Copyright and Intellectual Property Act as well. We also have the IP policy that was instituted. So the problem is not so much with the missing, they might be weak frameworks, but there is concerted effort to make sure that the landscape is conducive for the creators to operate. But I think one of the areas that we should go into, that's a glaring opportunity for us and that we are not optimizing on, is the fact that our creatives cannot monetize digital content. And this is because our financial regulatory framework does not accommodate the transactions that happen on the digital space. So there is, but I'm reliably informed that the ministry, through the ministry responsible for the arts, is actually making sure that we are working to improve this. So there is hope in that direction, as long as we can improve and have improved frameworks, we should be able to manage as a sector.
Thank you. Dr. Kimberly, let me just call it Kim, for those who don't know you. Let's have your reflections, and then I'll give you a specific question.
Okay.
2 minutes starting.
Okay. 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐧𝐠 Dilo difetto 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐜𝐿𝐻. It's a privilege to be here with all of you and with the audience and have this platform. I've been in Botswana for just over a year. I'm really excited to be here and part of this journey with Botswana and the transformation, to be at the University of Botswana as we transform not only our teaching and learning, but also to have our research intensity to support this. As you can see, if I'm going to speak to the digitization, I've kept my notes digital. I think we're in a point we've got to do more with less. I'm overly optimist, and with less money is also an opportunity for creativity. And I think digital solutions and the digitization really support that. The budget speaks to fiscal prudence, and we can improve our efficiencies and we can reduce costs with introducing some of these technologies across the government sectors, public sector, and of course in collaboration with our private sector. I was delighted to see that we have a significant budget share for higher education and basic education, to Prof's emphasis on the importance of early education. I'm very passionate for the research element, and I hope to see more funding into our National Research Fund that will support the development of new industries in some of the topic areas. I was encouraged by the ambition to build a regional energy hub, ensure stable energy, high capacity power, and attracting also data centers. And that's where I think exactly where research and innovation funding and building that capacity in the university sector will support that capacity development in future industries. I was also excited to see mention of the Village Connectivity Program. So that's expanding the fiber optic to our rural communities. That enables then for our digitalization and those job creation outside of the cities as well. It also supports our research when we're doing data collection, engaging with communities, that it makes that research process more streamlined. And so also just seeing that the digital is really at the heart of all these industries, if it's healthcare, it's education, it's the creative sector. It touches all of our areas. So it's nice to see that it's not a side project, but that it's really at the heart of the infrastructure development.
On your specific question, how can these investment in the digital economy be used to transform into jobs, especially jobs for the youth?
Yeah, so I think I'm really passionate with the digitization and how we collect our data, so data across sectors. So digitization is going to help us improve our efficiencies, cut down waste, and also ensure robust processes and systems. With the data, that allows us to make data-based decisions of where we are investing our income. I'd like to also touch on that. I see that we've got a few, we're talking about national IDs, we're talking about procurement. I think the end-to-end process of this, so that we've got integrated systems. We are a small country, so it cuts down duplication, so that will improve, it'll improve our data, it'll improve our systems, or improve our efficiencies. It'll enable, I'm really quite passionate as well about the human capacity development. So if we can introduce digital technologies and efficiencies, including artificial intelligence, that enables us also when at the university, when our programs, that we're upskilling not only students, but we're upskilling employees. And so that allows us to all be involved in higher value work and input into the economy. So the efficiencies of the digitization, I think, it's more of an opportunity for job creation, and something not that we can actually find a greater purpose in what we're doing. And I was speaking with someone recently about artificial intelligence. They're doing a survey across the continent. Immediately we think of agriculture on the continent, and that is a really important space. There's agriculture, there's tourism, there's healthcare. As Prof was discussing on the creative industries, GDP growth of creative industries in Africa is expected to go to 4% by 2030. The barrier to entry is lowering, especially with digitization. We can now create micro dramas on mobile phones. You can edit as you're filming these, so you can significantly cut down on costs. You can create new jobs. This can attract tourism. It can, it's a cross-cutting with set design and production and business studies. So it's another area, if we think of immediately with digitization, we're thinking maybe cybersecurity, we're thinking of financial services or agriculture, but it really touches on everywhere that has an opportunity to open up the job market. And I think I just want to make maybe one last, as much as we're doing the digitization of our services for the public, so talking about IDs or that outward facing, I'm really passionate that we're working together across public sector and government to improve our day-to-day operations, to digitize what we're doing on a day-to-day amongst ourselves, because that'll improve our own efficiencies. It makes us easier to work with the private sector and global partners.
Thank you. Dr. Tlhalifa?
Thank you.
Yep, your 2 minutes reflection, then we'll get to your specific question.
Thank you. As has already been said, the budget is by far the most important annual statement of the government. In this regard, it is critical that when the budget is being prepared, there's got to be participation and transparency in the process. Participation in terms of ensuring, individuals, stakeholders are involved in the process. Of course, we can't all be, sit together and do the thing. What strikes me in this year's budget is that the budget strategy paper and the budget pitch was, came very late, and I'm not sure whether, the views, the thoughts, the thinkings that you received from this consultation were able to see through the budget. So I would like to next deal with the participation comes much earlier and also be broadened. I also, find it interesting and commendable that you extended the avenue of participation other than just the budget speech, the calls that you received. So that's another avenue, and that's a good thing. This also needs to be transparency in the preparation process. And transparency also in terms of the implementation. And we can only, that ensures that we are able to hold government accountable. Now, if some documents are not provided, if some information is not provided, we are not able to hold government accountable. And what is surprising about this budget is the fact that you have a substantial amount of allocations, particularly to the PDF, that should not be paid now. These are areas that possibly should have been settled or paid 5 years ago. And the result is that now the budget, we are now reaching the budget ceilings or exceed the budget limit. And that raises the question that at this point in time, do we actually know our debt? Do we actually know our debt? And we need to be honest and open and tell Botswana the level of the debt and how we arrived at this debt level. We saw it coming. There have been arguments since 2010 that the economy is not performing well. The diamond revenues are on the decline. Meanwhile, the expenditure was rising. And we're not capping the expenditure. At one point, we're going to have to do that. So it's an issue of whether we start preparation for the soft landing or we want to do things the hard way. The second thing about this budget is, one way in which the budget or government can stimulate the economy is in terms of the allocations, the aggregate and the distribution. And second is the announcement or the physical tools. And what is striking about this budget is that each one of us here, individuals, firms, this year's budget will actually affect us more than any other one. First is the VAT. Second is the increase in the tax bracket that will be presented to Parliament. So we either as households or individuals as firms have to start making preparations and adjust in a calm way rather than delay the adjustment process and tomorrow we say, look, things are difficult. We see that. The other thing I found interesting about the budget is the theme itself, ushering economic transformation and fiscal prudence. There are sectors that appear in the budget, 6 that are prioritized and seem to be the ones that will be able to transform the economy, which raises the question whether those sectors are transformative. As stated in the budget, these are sectors that have high value addition. But at the same time, these sectors are less labor absorbing. So if you have high unemployment, and the high unemployment arises or is merely consists of those workers that are less skilled or individuals that are less skilled. And if your strategy then focuses on high value sectors, high skilled labor or skilled labor intensive, how are you going to be able to absorb the low skilled labor? So for me,
let me get now to your specific question. You'll have another opportunity to. Your specific question is looking at the fiscal consolidation without stifling growth. And as you have already indicated, the budget deficit is adding to our debt this year, almost going towards the ceiling, which is 40% of GDP. The SADC guide is 60% of GDP. And most countries in SADC a bit above that and coming towards 60%. Botswana has not been experiencing that. It has never had to shoot the ceiling. So my question then is how, as a country, firstly, whether this budget is fiscally prudent and sustainable, and secondly, what mix of revenue reforms and spending restraints can stabilize the debt while supporting private sector-driven economy?
Thank you. Let me deal with the first part, whether the budget is fiscally prudent. And here then we need to focus on first aspect, is the debt. The announcement that the debt ceiling will be recalibrated, and there's a general agreement that a higher debt level or even readjusting the debt ceiling upward is not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's a surprise to the market, or you lose confidence in the market if you do that. It leads to high interest rates, which increase the cost of borrowing. It may also be, anti-developmental, depending on how it's done. So the issue then will be, should we increase it? And my first point will be, how did we arrive at the 40% debt ceiling? And how did we arrive at the 40% domestic and 40% external? And the next then will be, what is the threshold level of our debt to GDP ratio? If the threshold is 60%, then it is prudent to be able to raise it to that level. That will be my argument. But we must also be careful that we don't continue, get into the habit of raising the debt level. Then the second part of the question is the what policy mix of revenue and spending. And here I need to be very short. The revenue mix, in my view, is well articulated in the budget. And I subscribe to that. Now you need to raise the tax base. We need to increase the efficiency in tax collection. But the third thing, which is not coming out very strong, we need to reduce the tax expenditure. And the tax expenditure here is the amount of tax that should be paid, but that is not in terms of VAT exemptions, in terms of tax holidays and so forth. That we need to look into and find how much is that amount. The other thing for me will be the subsidy. We need to really look at the subsidy. We need to make difficult choices. Is the way the subsidies are implemented now, are they benefiting those that are intended to benefit? If we take electricity, this is intended to benefit the poor, but do the poor have electricity? So we need to really look at these subsidies and ensure that the subsidies are targeted so that we reduce.
Thank you. Just for you, Dr. Timono, before we open for the audience to do a quick comment and questions, yours will be a reflection on two areas. We currently have a youth unemployment of 38%. There is a figure of the youth not in employment, not in education, not in training, which is rising and now at 40.2%. What is this budget talking about those youth? What we have in store for them? And the second one is we are proposing to increase tax for the upper bracket, the 4,000 per annum by 4,000 per annum by about 2.5%. What do you think the impact would be? Have you, on the household sector, have we done the cost benefit of all of these, and how did we arrive at that? Thank you. Just 5 minutes.
Oh, no, that's fine. No, thank you very much, and good morning once again. Let me start with that one because it cuts across the discussion she spoke about the arts. I think we dedicated a whole section on the National Fund of Funds in the budget speech. We also admit, you would have seen it also in the 2025 budget speech as a paragraph, but then we also admit that we have not made much traction on that one. We see the MSME sector as critical in unlocking employment. In that sector, we see it being excluded from the financing ecosystem. So our immediate address to that is through the National Fund of Funds, which we have proposed. In fact, we'll be having a discussion next week where we are calling everyone, the creatives, or Masape, operatives, everyone who has been excluded in the financing system. We see the architecture that is largely collateral-based, excluding some of those who do not have collateral to access finance. I mean, if you look at the creative, for instance, if you give a creative, whether it's basket weaving, whether it's a singer, a loan, and you expect them to make a repayment every month, I mean, that's unfair on them. But particularly looking at the seasonality of the activities that generate income for them. So we are solutioning for that. That next week we are solutioning for that. Bringing researchers, NARDI, UB, Unipod, I think we have invited everyone, the banks, to come sit, and then we solution for a proper financing system for the SMMEs. Not a grant, but where there is also incubation and entrepreneurship. So we think that is one of the immediate low-hanging fruit that we can address that particular one. On the issue of taxes, I'll also address what Prof is saying. Let me start with the tax expenditures. If you look at the Gazette UNA text, it has a list of those zero-rated items, Prof. When you look at the effective VAT rate that we have in Botswana, it's 6%. When you look at the VAT rate, it's 14%. And much of that is the tax expenditures. List of zero-rated items, that's where we are now. They are not serving the intended purpose. So we said, let's look at this list and unlock the additional revenue, particularly on VAT. VAT on the digital space, we also have that. On the income tax side, we did a couple of simulations with the Botswana Unified Revenue Service, and we said, remember we said last year 1.5, and we had a backlash. After the unions came and said, look, if 1.5 tax increase for tax earners with a bracket there 156, 18,000 per month. And that includes everyone, teachers, police, and those that cannot be called top earners. So we went back and reflected and said, okay, how do we do this again? That's why we proposed a new bracket. And our simulations suggest that we will have an additional income from that particular one, plus the one on corporate taxes. The one on corporate tax is about 3%, and it cuts everyone, even in the manufacturing development order. You know there are some tax incentives in the manufacturing development order, and that also extends, and we think that can unlock revenue. So I think that's...
Yeah. Thank you. I think we'll have 10 minutes of having questions and comments from the floor. Let's be very pointed. Let's not make another presentation. We'll see by show of hands, and the Director of Ceremonies will help.
One-on-one, such that each and every one can understand. Second, thank you to you, Professor Masiri, because everybody, because exactly of AI and WhatsApp, everybody is an expert, but experts are here. That the budget is silent on women in general. I'm happy that you talked about 𝐵𝐵𝐴 and SMMEs, because when you talk agriculture, you talk women. When you are talking health, you are talking women. We are the caregivers. When you are talking education, we are the ones who clean the children to go to school and check their homework. You don't do that. The budget must incorporate to see how these women, when you are talking about GBV, we are talking women. So all the societal issues which affect women adversely, they are not going to be productive as we deem and as we want them to be. I would have thought you would have, when speaking, and I saw the minister spoke about FMD, I would have thought we would have linked that to BVI to say how ready is BVI able to assist farmers. And I think for the record, give on our television, to also as University of Botswana, to commend the farmers of Botswana to reduce dependence from government. Or by now, that thing is important because as a society, all of us, if we can be less dependent on government, where we can, that's a we will all win together. I am concerned, Doc, about AI. Elon Musk, we are talking unemployment. They are telling us AI is not going to need any of us. We are all going to be irrelevant. So as we are quick and talk digitalization and adopt, I didn't care for the 1+1. 12 times stable, and all these things go to AI. To your point, where we say differentiation, I categorize our learners. Lastly, my honorable minister, the tolo guy is a little positioning, you know, is solo has they can maintain road infrastructure and they can do very well. When I go to a safari and I pay to a company in the UK and I pay to a company in South Africa, my dear, I will be the tax. Exactly. In conclusion, corruption. We talked corruption, there's a little excited, in the forensic audit, that rona, ba rona, le naki le mote, ba re beile madi ko ntle, le tabusa, atanari, sa, kana legitimate hela tu, a re bone di results tsa lona, mme le tsebe madi, la isitse gone go, le re soloheditse dilo, re bona yana, o ka re le ntse, le tabusa, le busa, mme ke rapela ka bohelo gore, please don't go over 40%. Whenever I say that, it's over.
Thank you, Chancellor. I am going to allow the Minister to dispense on the issue of talking.
Get me comment on this one, but of course, history is very important. The Ministry is also prioritizing the issue of toll gates. I think for now what is staying is the procurement issue as usual, but you already have people on the ground doing feasibility studies. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you for such an engaging discussion. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm 𝐃𝐲𝐬𝐧𝐠, the British High Commissioner here. I'll keep it brief. I mean, there is a growing significant interest from UK investors in supporting Botswana's economic transformation plan. And I and my colleagues are as passionate about the role of education and innovation as an engine for growth. And we're looking in partnership with the government here about how we can supercharge education and innovation to play a role in economic growth. But given the interest from UK investors, my question is a simple one, or is a short one, is that if you panelists were to point to one reform or shift that will make Botswana's investment climate more attractive to UK investors, what is that one reform or shift that you would point to from your individual perspective? Thank you so much.
For the radio effort. Mine is a question that, also let me just point out before I go on to the question. It's quite disappointing that we are here in the University of Botswana and the panelist does not have individuals who school, this very school. You are trying to address situations that are happening in the university, and yet you don't have us in the conversation. I don't know if it speaks to the lack of confidence you have in the systems that you provided already in the education system, or perhaps it just speaks to the lack of confidence there or in terms of knowledge, the youth. So I'll cut straight to it. There's a disparity when it comes to theoretical information and relaying it into the practical world, which is quite often the struggle for us, most of us in fact, because there's a lot of us here who attest to that. And I ought to say, there is not a curriculum that encompasses solutions for now. We still have curriculums that are still back in 2014, but we're in 2026 now. See, every year there needs to be an advancement in education if we're looking to go forward. The element for me about education is that we should be applauded to be critical thinkers in any situation that we come across. Sitting in information that it was then perhaps maybe applicable in 2014 does not help us now. Engage us. We get it. You're very well educated and we love that because it means we can actually learn from you. But if you teach me something that does not solve your problem and put me in the office, not only are you setting me up for failure, it's setting me up for disappointment and depression, because not only am I dispensable as an invaluable asset, because you're also limiting my ability, because there's not much that you're giving me to work with. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I would like to quickly respond to the issue issue of students not being part of the panel. What I would like to confirm is that indeed we do value the voice of students.
I pass my blood to you all in the mighty name of our Lord Jesus Christ. My name is 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬. I have two questions directed at Mem Rapo and Said Khalifan. For Mem Rapo, I want to address the issue of the arts outside of the mainstream. I am a thespian, by the way. And I've been to almost all competitions. I've been to ABOSPA, BOSTA, and National Arts Council competitions. And what I've realized is that the last frameworks, like from the ministry downwards, there's a bit of a problem with frameworks that lie there. Because after disbursements of funds and then these competitions are held, like there is no anything that is tangible that you get out of such competitions. All I can show you is a certificate, but I've been in the arts sector since primary school, and also there's no follow-up after competitions. And when you get to issues of appealing competition results, we once appealed and then went to the National Arts Council. They rejected the appeal without addressing the matters, the contents of the appeal. So my question is, what do you think can help to make sure that we strategize enough to make sure that we bring out employment out of such a sector? Because I know most people, they formed community art groups, but they ended up being broken because they had to go and look up for jobs because they were not paid them at the end of the day. And then my question to Said Khalifan is regarding the agricultural sector. I've realized that it's given like it's been at the back a bit. It's given like really change somehow. So my question is, if we can look at the case of Burkina Faso, they've managed to revolutionize agriculture to a point where they become food self-sufficient. And in our country, we know that it has helped us build this university. So I want to ask you a question that, what is your take on the fact that the agricultural sector is not like given enough like credit or attention in matters of maybe improving the economy, which I believe can do a great job in such an issue. Thank you.
I request that when we do make interventions, let's find
our graduate student population, and as such as taking the lead to waive tuition fees. But having said that, we also recognize that when we have graduate students, we've got people who are able to deliver at higher levels than the undergraduates. These are people who the development budget can actually support by using them as researchers as part of their research work in PhD and masters. And also recognizing 𝐷𝐴𝐺𝐸 that our graduate students in health are essentially part of the health system. They are helping government already. So while we appreciate the fact that the government has given the Ministry of Education a higher budget, to whom we are also going to request funding for bench fees, for research work for these students who we have waived tuition for, we also would like the development budget to consider prioritizing funding postgraduate research for these students, because they will be delivering on those issues that are of concern to the nation. So this is where, in my view, doing more with less actually entails. So I'm thinking, therefore, that all of us need to really come to the party and support the university management, who have actually said we are growing this specialized skill to address diverse issues that are cutting across our nation. Thank you.
For today's dialogue, doing more with little. Now, it speaks to the essence of productivity. But early this year, the World Political Report placed Botswana at 67 out of 69 countries in terms of productivity. In other words, the level of productivity in Botswana is one of the lowest in the world. Now, my question is, how are we going to address that? Because to me, it doesn't matter the level of budget we can give to ministries. It will be like throwing money at problems. Now, the first thing is to attend to productivity level. The second operation reflects on digital transformation. The budget focuses on that as well. But I still develop goosebumps when I hear that a government officer is traveling to Mau to attend a meeting. To me, that is a kind of, some kind of tourism funded by the government. And I think we need to address that as well if we want to talk about digital transformation. Thank you so much.
First, let me start with Prof. Bulawa. There's an issue from the youth about our curriculum. It's not problem solving oriented, it's still modeling. What are we doing?
Oh, can I have this? Yeah. That is the problem I actually raised earlier. I was saying, up until we change our curriculum to one that provides children with multiple pathways, we have a problem. Because the multiple pathways, or those pathways, will give a child the opportunity to look at the menu in the school and decide these are the subject areas that I would like to pursue. Because going forward, I would like to be in the hotel and hospitality sector. Another one would say, remember, I'll give you an example. People never want to make reference to what happened to Swaneng in the 1960s. Swaneng Hill School was wholly constructed by students, the whole school. And then maintenance was also in the hands of the students. Basically, the students were doing that kind of learning that provided them with skills, and at the same time doing academic work. I remember when we completed at Swaneng, those who had gone through those programs went straight to the job because they had learned that at secondary school level. They chose the subject that they knew would actually pave their future in terms of their career. This is what we need to do. We need to implement Ministry of Education. I believe you are here. We need that multiple pathways. Multiple pathways is not anybody's ideology. This is what many countries have pursued, to be able to give their youth skills that they would later use. One of the reasons why sometimes people complain about Zimbabweans in this country is the fact that Zimbabwean children went through that kind of education, and they are taking all those what you consider small jobs from our own young people because they never did. When our children fail, they fail, and that's it. They don't have any skill. So that's what we need to do. And then let me piggy right with the question that you, but I think there's hope. You know, one of the biggest problems is that in Botswana, working relationships between the ministry and the university, for instance, is not symbiotic. When you read, you'll find that where performances, where children are taught the right things exist, is because there is that symbiotic relationship. What in those countries do is that they give to the university. I know you are struggling with money, all of us, but I think if there is money that you should not give an excuse, that needs to be given to the universities, is money or funding for research. Let these people get money, and then Prof there, the VC and his team can send these people out there to go and find out how come we have regions. We have 4 or 5 regions, probably one of them, 𝐃𝐲𝐬𝐧𝐠, they have always been failing. And people don't say, why are they failing? How do you have 5 regions which are failing every year and nobody seems to be bothered? I mean, when the junior result, JC results were released, I went to the 4 regions, or 5, they failed again. They are in the region of 35% and so forth. So we need that close working relationship between the university. And I want to beg finance there. You may lack money, as is the case now, but find money for research, give it to UB and others. I won't speak for them, but give it to UB. The university of, yes, then we'll send people out there to investigate and be in a position to state what are the issues and how do we go about tackling them. That is what should happen, I think.
Yeah, Prof. Tima? Yeah, maybe I can just react to the British High Commissioner's question. I think he asked about what one reform that we think can happen to attract investors from. So one of the things that I think we have a problem with in this country is communication lines and keeping them open. It's very difficult to get access to information in Botswana. We're talking digitalization, and I think that should be a start as a reform, so that when somebody wants to invest in healthcare, for example, and wants to know what is the doctor-patient ratio in Botswana, what is all that data should be at the tips of the hand. It should be. I think that to me is an important reform that we need, and that takes changing our attitudes about what kind of data are we able to make accessible to the public, and it's available. You don't need to write a letter and wait for a response after the board has met. That kind of situation. I think that's one thing. Access to data for whatever industry, I think. And one thing that I didn't mention in my remarks that I thought was also exciting is this idea of the National Health Intelligence Center, which talks about data. For healthcare, I think it's important because it says we will have access to the kind of data dashboard that will be able to make decisions like that. We have the data. I think it's access to data is a reform that we must think about. Yeah. Prof. Rapo,
yes, thank you very much. I actually had like 3 questions that came and were directed at me. But if you could please allow me to respond to Marona, because just you did, when I mentioned earlier on that there's that glaring oversight of making, of ignoring certain critically important ministries. It is exactly that. We're not talking about youth, the crisis of youth unemployment. We're also talking about the crisis of gender-based violence. So to not push up the ministry responsible for gender issues, it's an oversight that we should address immediately. So thank you very much, Marona, for emphasizing that. And then pretty quickly to the issue about attracting UK investors. Yes, I love the fact that the UK is one of those that are, the United Kingdom is one of those that are in the forefront, particularly in the creative industries. We could really strengthen our own funding models through partnerships with you and with the UK. And the British Council here in Botswana is doing a phenomenal job in terms of research on the creative industries. So to partner with, and specifically I wanted to refer to the UK creative industry cluster programs, because as I said, they're well ahead of us, and this is something that we could partner on. And then also partnerships on the digital literacy programs and research, as has been mentioned already. This is something that we should do, and the University of Botswana is well placed to partner with the UK on that front. The issue about competitions, I am completely aligned. This completely resonates with me as well. I do believe that we need sustainable funding models. Competitions are never the best way to go. I completely agree, but we have to start somewhere. And I do think that the government is making the best efforts and the appropriate investment to lay the foundation for that, to address this issue. For example, when we talk about the National Fund, the references to the National Fund of Funds, I think that's absolutely brilliant because it will serve the sector. I'm a little worried that it's going to be launched in the 2027-2028 financial period. That's a little destabilizing and a little unsettling, but as I said, we do have to start somewhere. And then the 200 million Pula investment into the sector, I think that's a fantastic start as well. So we can't really bank on competitions because, as I said, I'm completely with you. And then there are other areas.
Let's wind up on your...
Sorry, I get so excited about my sector. There is the levy on technical devices as well. So you shouldn't, creatives are encouraged to look at other avenues of support and not just competitions. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Dr. Tumuna? Oh,
yes.
Okay. I think let's get Cornfield first, very quickly.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just wanted to touch on the education piece and the relevance of the programs. I do understand that that is a challenge, and some of the activities that we are doing at the University of Botswana is, and this will go out, it'll lead into partnerships and also in the UK, but is with University of Toronto, for example, we've embedded an online program, 7 modules for entrepreneurship that's open, so that even if we can't at this point immediately change curriculum because of the processes and the policies, we're trying to come up with solutions as well that would be able to upskill and support new areas of development. In terms of the UK, that's great to hear, to Your Excellency. I think I agree with my colleagues on the digitization. We do have, we're developing some partnerships with UK universities. We've just had one on higher education development. We're working on also partnership around biological engineering, biology engineering. But we're also quite interested on the data and the AI piece, both with education institutes and industry that could support. And I think in terms of as well, we talked about the data. One area that is really, before coming here to Botswana, it still is, it's hard to find what is the expertise, what data do we have. So this is a really important area, not only for our own decision making in country and amongst ourselves, but also to support that investment opportunity and where we can attract investment. And I think that, and the gender piece, we did have last year, we had one of our fantastic researchers here specifically to speak to gender, and I think that that's something we should make sure we include next year.
Yeah, Dr. Talifang, I think there was a specific question for you before we go to Dr. Talifang.
Yes, the question was on agriculture.
Yes.
It seems to be under the impression that agriculture is not prioritized or supported, but if we look at all the government budget in the national development plans, there is always emphasis on the agricultural sector. There are funds currently that are allocated to the agricultural sector. If you go to the government website on Botswana Economic Transformation Program, you'll find specific projects geared to in the agricultural sector. So I do think that there is substantial allocations are being made to the agricultural sector. I think the issue for me is, we see allocations to this sector, but the returns, the output that we get, are we getting value for money? And the way the subsidies or the assistance provided to agriculture at the end of the day, is it going to the farmers or not? And I think it's high time that we ensure that the real farmers stand up, and that's when we'll actually start seeing, output, coming up that is commensurate with the amount that is spent in the sector, not absentee farmers. I think.
Thank you, Dr. Tamuna. You will be the last, but
thank you.
Shortest where we are.
All right, let me do with the British one. The good thing with the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, when it was approved with a raft of legislation that requires to be amended to facilitate investment. You'd be surprised that some of the legislations that we are working, some of them are 1960, already parked, and some of the investors have been frustrated due to fragmentation. You know, one thing just to change a land use, for instance, it will take forever. You know, the board has to say it. You know, then the investor ends up being frustrated. So we have a list of legislation that we have sent to ministry. Say, look, we need you to amend these as soon as possible so that all the projects that are in the BETP investors are not frustrated. The issue of subsidies on yes, agriculture, for instance, it has been recognized as the #1 priority sector. When we are looking at those priorities, agric is #1, mainly because of its labor intensity and its close proximity to the rural population, especially women like our mother said, for instance. So the subsidy programs that Dr. 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 is talking about, we are also reimagining those subsidy programs. Through the proxy means testing, are we really giving these subsidies to the people that are supposed to be getting them? Or is me or 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 that are getting the subsidies, for instance? So we are also looking at that proxy means testing for the Ministry of Local Government, over above all the subsidies. The issue of productivity, the Botswana Economic Transformation Program. Remember what I said earlier? I said we are inefficient in how we allocate capital, and how we allocate labor. That's inefficient use of labor. You know, the way that we have cost overruns for projects, that's inefficient use of capital. So the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, the projects that you see in there, they have gone through a rigorous project appraisal process, project selection process, cost benefit analysis, to ensure that every project that is in the budget is well costed and there is proper monitoring and evaluation. Historically, we used to just have a long list of projects that basically are not well costed, not well thought of. When a project is implemented, for instance, over time we have cost overruns because all the pre-feasibility studies were not done in time. So yes, we are addressing that through the Botswana Economic Transformation Program. The issue of VAT memo, totally agree with you. The VAT Amendment Act 2025, it also had remote services in it. And we are in consultation with other stakeholders, like the tourism industry, for instance. So we have a tax bito. So you are all invited to come to the tax bito, so that we all look at these taxes, the income tax bill, we all look at the custom tax bill, we all look at the VAT zero-rated items, we all look at everything with all the stakeholders, such that all the reform, the tax reform, is well understood and everyone has a buy-in in it. Because tax is not a punishment. We also have an obligation as government to demonstrate to everyone that with the money that we are collecting, we can deliver the services to the people. The issue of the toll gates, it came through for the budget consultation, let's put the toll gates. But there's two schools of thought to it. Other countries go really So I think that's one of the areas in which we are also looking into it. Please allow me to stop here. I'll get it.
Thank you. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists. They've done a lovely job. At this stage, let's have some comments from the Minister, Assistant Minister, Honorable 𝐁𝐿𝐴.